basically be talking about today, what I'm thinking is understanding how a recruitment team. So I reckon you guys would have a bit of an understanding of what recruitment really is, right? So I don't really expect you to have a very in-depth understanding. I'm just talking about how the basic things that I'll be covering is how you would know how many people we are going to hire in a coming year, right? How is that probably linked to one of the parameters of the organization, like revenue or productivity or something like that, right? And basis that, how do we know that for hiring that many number of people, what is the cost that we will incur? Now, this would be dependent upon certain trends, right, which would act as variables when we are trying to calculate these. So we'll probably look at a baseline from a previous year and try and say that this is the same kind of trend that will be followed this year. And basis that, we try to create create the cost. So a very simple application, so to say, but I'll take you step to step. I understand that you guys are not very hands-on on an Excel, right? So I've kind of used very simple formulas. A couple of places where probably I've used trends and all. I'll kind of give you an understanding what that means, and as I go along, probably uh, the sheet that I've kind of given you has um, has areas in green that you will see, right? So in the other sheets as well, you will see that there are certain areas which are in green. There are certain areas which are in blue, right? So these are the ones that we will try to fill up either through formulas or through pivot tables. And let's see if that kind of gives us an overall cost at the end of the whole exercise. So this is what I wanted to cover with you guys. And I'll kind of will also allow you to work on it in while I go through the sheets and exercise and kind of explain it to you. But in case I'll in case you have any queries, you can always put it on the chat, or of course I think you can just unmute yourself and speak up as well. And what I'll also be doing for you guys is I'll, at the end of the session, right, I'll kind of give you another sheet which has all these, formulas, all these pivots. So right now, I'll be helping you guys in filling all this blue sheets, blue cells with values that you get from pivots. But later on, at the end of the session, I'll share a sheet with you which has all the pivots, right, instead of the boxes that I've created, so that you understand that how these things were created and calculated and everything for your reference in future. So that being said, I think that is what I'll be trying to cover. Apart from, so that is basically the agenda for the day. But in case you think that there is something else as well which you would want me to cover, because this is also an interaction that you're getting with the industry. So anything, any queries, questions, thoughts that you have, which you would want to cover, which you would want me to kind of cover apart from this, you can let me know so that I can take that towards the end. I can probably allocate some 5-10 minutes towards that, right? So I think the session will be, Nabin would have told you about the session. We would be conducting it for about an hour and a half, so till about 11:30. Then we'll have a short break, and then we'll again come back. So while we have that break, probably that is the time then you can or you can put in some more uh, thought into what all things you would want to discuss about or converse about, and put that in the chat window so that we can take it up accordingly, right? With that, I think I'll get started. In case there is anything that you guys want to um, you know comment or say about, you can use the chat window, or unmute yourself and let me know. Yeah. While I'll give you the exercises to do, right? Like for example, I'll give you some time to get started with the exercises and talk about it. But in case in case I have some some five or six confirmations that you guys have kind of done it, I'll probably then get started to the next section in the sheet, because I think then you guys can kind of help each other out in terms of how you are going to go about doing it, at your pace. All right. So that being said, let me get into the main exercise sheet. Okay. So the first thing that we will try to do is basically try to calculate what is the number of people that we want to hire. Okay. Um, so uh, so basically, the assumption that we are basically taking here when we are trying to do that is thinking that the revenue that we earn. Okay, let's say the revenue that the companies run earning is basically directly dependent upon the number of people that it has. Right, so that kind of becomes a way to say that in case the revenue is going to increase, then my headcount is also going to increase. In case the revenue is going to decrease, then I probably need lesser people to actually work for me to generate that much revenue, right? So that is the base assumption with which we start working, right? So and this company that we are working with basically has three lines of businesses. Okay, it could be anything. It could be like different kind of operations that might be do that the company might be doing. So three different business areas, or three different regions that they are trying to serve. So that kind of a company with about four levels of employees. Right. So when I talk about levels, basically those are like designations of people who are at the lower rank in the organization. You have the organization's hierarchy, right? You have the lowest rank, you have the people at the analyst or senior analyst level. When you move up, they kind of become the managers, then they become the mid-level managers, then they become the senior managers, right? So that kind of a breakup is what I mean when I say level 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So what you see out here in the first sheet in the gray cells is what you can assume is something that we are starting with. So we know that what the revenue that the business earned in the fiscal years 15, 16, 17, 18, right? And you know what the total revenue was business-wise, and you also know what the headcounts were, right? So you had 440 people, 460 people, 486, 500 people for business one, and this was corresponding to this particular revenue. Okay, that makes sense. Then the next, and similarly, you have about these many number of people who are basically working for these business too throughout these years, and you had this kind of a revenue generated. Okay, and for each headcount, you also have the breakup. Right? So how many people were there at level 1, how many people are there at level 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay. Now what we'll first try to do is that we will first try to say that what is the revenue that we are going to earn. Now there will be some kind of a projection that we'll work with, right? So all these yellow highlighted cells are the ones which can be thought of as input cells. So basically you will input values here that this is what my projection looks like. So this is what I think will be the increase, that kind of a thing. And basis that all these, the rest of the calculations will run. So what basically I mean is that say 166,396 is the revenue that business one earned in 2018. So similarly, if I were to, so I had 500 people. So similarly, if I were to assume project that the revenue is going to increase to 175,000, then what the total headcount will be, right? So that is what I basically mean when I say this is a kind of a projection. and there is a linkage between the revenue and the total headcount. Okay. Now, I've kind of given this as an input, but it can also be, generally when businesses talk about it, they kind of think of it in terms of, increases in percentages, right? So it could be something like 5%, 3%, 8%. So on the FY18 revenue, I could say that I'm going to increase it by 5%. I could, also take that kind of an approach to create some kind of numbers. Right now, I've just taken some very simple numbers. So, just corresponding to the FY18, what the numbers look like, right? So it becomes a direct input column. Otherwise, you could also calculate these numbers using a percentage increase in the revenue. Okay. Now, as I mentioned that, there is a linkage between the revenue and the business headcount, right? So what is this linkage like? What is this relationship? It's basically some kind of a standard, linear kind of a relationship, right? So I think one of the most simplest relationship that you basically have is, the linear one, where you basically say that y is equal to um, a plus bx, right? I mean, where this is basically a mathematical relationship where you have y is y is basically the variable that you're trying to find out. So the head count, right, is basically dependent upon a plus a is a constant and bx is where x is the independent variable. So the x basically helps define y. Right? So that is a simple relationship that we follow. In case of, in case of, so this is the relationship that we'll try to establish using the previous data. So we have about four years data about revenue and headcount, right? So using this, we'll try to say that if this is the headcount, if this is the revenue, then what is the headcount going to be, right? So for about $110,000, 110, yeah, 110,000, what will the headcount going to be for business three in FY19? Okay, and clear so far? Any doubts about this? What I'm trying to say? Okay. I'll take it as a affirmation. In case you still have any place where you're not able to follow, you just let me know. So okay, so a formula that we'll basically be using here is called trend. Okay, so what the trend basically does is that it, as I said, that there's a relationship of y is equal to a plus bx. I think you guys would have had this in your basic statistics course, which is called linear regression, right? So basically, I'm just trying to apply the same thing. It could be any kind of a relationship which kind of fits in well, but I'm just going with a simpler one, which is basically a trend, right? So trend is a function which helps us do this. So what we do is that in the trend function, we'll basically first say what the known y's are, right? So as I said that, the variable that we're trying to find out is the one that we say as y, right? And this is dependent upon some other variable x. So here y is the headcount, x is the revenue. So what I'm basically doing is that I'll say that for calculating this, the trend that I'll get is basis the revenue, the headcount that I already had over the last 4 years, and what was the revenue for which I had that headcount, right? So my known y's become the values which are previous headcounts. The known x become the new the revenue that we had for those four corresponding years, right? And then what I say is what is the new x? That is the x for which I want to calculate the new y, right? So that is what I enter B level. and then I select 0 out here. This is what I have selected, but there is also an option of selecting 1. So this is, this what I get is a value of 537. Now you saw that there was this 1 0, right? So what was that? So I'll just give you a quick thing that the relationship that we create, right? Regression is basically a kind of a calculation where you try to basis the previous value, a variable x, you're trying to see how the variable y varied, and similarly in case variable x varies in future, how it will vary, how will y vary with it. Now here, you have two options. One is you can assume that there will be an intercept. That is, even if there is no revenue, there still will be people, right? And in such a scenario, there will be a value for A, right? But in case we assume that if there is no revenue, then there will be no employees. Okay, then basically there will be no intercept. So the formula will become basically y is equal to bx. Okay. So this is why when I'm taking 0, then basically it makes a to become 0. Okay, and it is only using a formula of y is equal to bx, right? So either ways we can choose, but this the basically would make more sense if intuitively it makes sense to you that there is, even if there is no revenue, there are going to be people, and is that what we are saying, right? And also in the current scenario, in this calculation that context that we are working with, saying that the intercepts can also be negative. So in the relationship that we are trying to establish, will not be able to make much of a sense in terms of a negative intercept or a positive intercept. So we can straight away go with the option of going with a 0, right? So if you understood it well, if you understood it, what I'm basically trying to do is fill in the previous values of y, fill in the previous values of x, which is basically the revenues. Tell the equation that what the new value of the revenue will be, and then use the constant to say that what kind of relationship I want. So this is what I do for all the three businesses. Okay, so if what I would request you guys is to try and do it for yourself. Try and fill in the values for the column J, cell J11, cell O11, and cell P11. I'll give you a couple of, I think, take a couple of 2-3 minutes and try and see. If you're done, then just post it in the chat window that you're done. So if you have some outputs, and if I have some responses, then I can kind of move ahead.
So can you tell why what is the significance of 0? I mean, in the trend formula, the last 0.
Yes.
I
So
hope you missed.
yeah. So basically, what I'm saying is that there is a relationship, right? Y is equal to a plus bx. Okay. Now, what this basically means is that the head count, that is what y is. Head count is equal to an intercept plus slope into revenue. Okay, let me just quickly try and pull up this thing as a um, try and do it here. Have you guys, had a exposure to regression? What regression is?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm saying is a regression line, right? What is here? I'm just making the intercept 0 in a regression line, right? So let me just quickly do this. Makes sense to you guys. So this was basically two variables which are varying, right? And I was to plot a trend line to this, like a linear regression. So basically, it would have a equation on the chart. Yeah. So basically, it would have this kind of a value, right? What this value basically means is that for a value where this is 0, you see this line basically going this way, right? Up to down. So if I stretch it back towards the value of x being 0, then you see that because this line is headed towards upward direction on the left side, it will meet somewhere above the value of 80, right? That is a value of 89. So what it basically says that even if the value of x is 0, the value of y, which is this one, is going to be 89.086. Okay, so this is the kind of relationship that exists when a intercept is there. Okay, so in the relationship, in the equation that we have, we are basically saying that this is a linkage between a revenue and a headcount. Okay, and we are just assuming that the value of intercept will be 0. We are not putting in some particular values there because the relationship is such that if there is no revenue, then certainly we are assuming that there will not be any employee, right? And also, why intuitively it doesn't make sense is because if the intercept is negative, then also it doesn't make sense because you cannot have negative number of people, right?
Got it, sir.
So in such a scenario, having an intercept would not make much of a sense. So that is why we are just going with a trend which does not include any intercept. Okay.
Yes, sir, clear.
Yeah. So that is why we are basically taking. That is why we are basically taking 0 here while putting it. So if I put in 1, probably the value will change a bit. It will become 518, say. So here basically we are assuming that there is an intercept existing in the relationship. Just to simplify, here we are saying that we are just going with the assumption that there is no intercept, right? So let me see if on the chat yeah, people have kind of said that. Cool. So I'll also kind of populate it here. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so I hope this is looking okay to you guys. You kind of got the similar kind of results. Yeah. Uh, in case I'll anyways be sharing this file at the end of it, so with the complete formulas and everything. So I think that will help you in case you can't kind of wrong that. Now the next thing that we'll have to do is that we have the headcount for each of the businesses according to the revenue that they have, right? So basis this headcount, we will basically try to find out what the value for each of the levels is. So how will we break out this 537, 487, 502 and all of that, right? So what we'll basically do is a very simple approach. That is, we'll say that whatever the headcount we have, right? That is 205 out of 500. So whatever proportion it is, basis that will say that for 537, what the proportion is going to be. Okay. So I think it's a very simpler, it's a much simpler formula for you guys. So it should not be much of a challenge. It, so you can just try doing it, right? Just an F10 divided by J10, right? F10 divided by J10 and then into J11, right? So the headcount in level 1 divided by total headcount in FY18 into what we project as the headcount to be for the year F2019. Okay, so you can just try doing that, and then what the next thing you'll do is similarly, calculate for all the four levels for all the three businesses. Right? Just try doing it. In case you're facing any issues, you can just let me know. Just see. Okay, just post once you're kind of done, yeah. Yeah. So I have two or three people who have already done it. Okay, cool. I think I have a decent number of people. I've been about close to 10 who have done, who've said that it is done. Right. So basically, with this calculation, you understand that what we have done. We basically said that what is the number of people that will be required at the end of the period in FY19, right? And for getting these many people, basically, if I were to say that, how many people I'll need to hire. So, basis this information, what would you say? What is the number of people that I'll need to hire? Yeah, I'm looking for a little interactivity. So I'm asking you questions. You can kind of answer.
So I think just taking a guess over here, the attrition rate that you've mentioned, first we'll calculate also the number of people that will leave. So out of 205, if 37 people will leave, so 205 minus 37, whatever value will come, 220 minus that value. So that would give us the number of people we need to hire.
Okay. I hope you guys were able to follow, what, thanks for that response. So I hope you guys were able to follow what he just mentioned right now. So basically we want to reach a headcount of 220, right? And we have about 205 people right now. So out of this 205, there will be certain people that will also exit because of the attrition rate that we observe at these levels in these businesses, right? So I've given dummy numbers out here, which basically say that what the attrition rate looks like, right? So for level one in business one, the attrition rate is say 18%. In level two business one, it is about 12%, and so on and so forth. So if I have to calculate, what percentage of people will out of this 205 will leave, and I'll have to replace them, I can do a very simple formula which basically says if 205 into 18%, right? So F16 into F10, that will give me a value which basically says that how many number of people I'll have as exits. So this gives me a value out here that is 37, right? So you can simply copy and paste this value formulas up here, right? And you should get some, the output. So just try doing it, right? I think you can also follow the next step, which is basically trying to get what is the number of projected hires that you'll have. Okay, so the projected hires would basically mean that out of the 205, you'll have 37 people moving out. You'll be left with a lesser number of people, and against that, you will say that I need to reach a target of 220. So how many people I need to hire? So basically, what you'll do is you'll say that I had these many number of people. That is, I need 220 people. However, from where do I need to reach that 220? So I have 205 people, right? 205 out here. 205 minus this 37. That is how many people will leave. So given the remainder that I have, what's the total number of hires that I'll have? So this is again, but and what I'm kind of doing here, one thing additional is basically a round off. So I'll just round off these numbers because all these numbers that are getting calculated, because they are, in a proportion, in some kind of proportions would be, in decimal points and all of that, right? So instead of, having a value which basically is like 51.875, I can just say that it is 52. So for doing that, I use a round function. So I do the calculation here, right? And then after that, I just give a comma and 0. So that basically says how many decimal points after the value will be shown in the output that comes out, right? So that is what I have kind of done here as a round function. You guys can try and fill in the formulas. Let me know once you're done. Any doubts around this? You can please feel free to kind of share. Okay, cool. I think I have some responses. I can kind of move ahead. All right. So just to summarize, what we've tried to do here is basically arrive at the number of people that we are going to hire. Okay. So what this basically means is that how many number of people that we can, that we need to plan for around the cost. So whenever we are going to calculate the cost, we'll need to know that how many people we need, right? That is the basis. Just like how you have to think that if I'm going to use a particular good, then how many number of items I need to produce so that I'll basis that I can think that what my cost is going to be. So similarly, in case I want to hire people, I need to know that what is the cost at which these people will be coming in. I need to know that how many people we are going to hire so that I can decide how much the cost is going to be. Okay. So that being said, I think what is going to be a relevant field for us is basically this, and basis this we'll do the further calculations in the coming sheets. So so any doubts on this particular sheet, on how we calculated all this final projected hires for 2018?
Yes, sir, just one thing, sir. Can you in short repeat this last part, like how you found out the projected hires? Just full stop on that.
Okay, how we went about doing the calculations,
Yes,
the logic
the
behind it.
projected hires.
Sorry, your voice was a little less.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
you
sir.
want
The
to know about the
projected hires.
calculation? Yeah. Okay. So basically, in if you look at this particular cell, you have 205 hires. You want to reach how many numbers? You want to reach 220. Okay. I mean, just think of it in something that you have. You have some coins or something like that. So say you want at the end of a particular period, you want 220 coins with you. Okay. So for those 220 coins, and right now you have about 205. So and on a yearly basis, you kind of lose certain percentage of your coins, right? So that is what we've said, that is the percentage. So the current context itself, if I talk about, every year there is an attrition that happens in an organization. So if I have a population of say 200, then out of that, there will be certain percentage of people who will be leaving the organization in a year. So that is what is signified by these attrition rates, right? I think I should just label it so that it becomes simpler to understand. Yeah. So basis this attrition rate, I'm able to calculate what is the number of people who will leave me in the coming year. So I start with 205 people. I have an attrition rate of 18%. So I'll lose 37 people in the year. How I come at a 37 is just simple, 205 into 18%. Now, if I have to reach 220 people in the year, in the FY 2019, then I started with 205 and I already am losing 37 out of those 205, right? Now, but I need to reach 220. Okay, so I'll need to add some more people to reach 220, right? To this 168. How much is that going to be? That is going to be 220 minus 168, right? So that is the only thing. This is the calculation that I've done here, where I basically say that out of the F11, that is basically the number of people that I need to reach, right? Out of this is where I need to reach, right? So, and these are the number of people that I'm going to lose, right? 37. I'm just getting these values in decimal because that is what the actual calculation is. But I hope you'll be able to get the idea. So out of 205 that people that I had, I'm going to lose 37. And even after losing those 37 people, I need to reach a 220 number. Okay. So that is what this particular formula does. Now, just to get rid of all these decimal values, I'm using the formula which is round. So what it does is basically is round off the final value that comes after the calculation. So this is the calculation bit, right? And then you have comma and 0. So 0 basically says that there will be 0 decimals in the final output. So that is what I have done here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So one question. There might be a few people who might get promoted also in financial year 2018 from level 1 to level 2.
Yes, that can also happen. So basis, if we have the promotion numbers, right, then we can add them here. Like we could include a column, say promotions. So before we get into 2019, we can include a column which says, actually it will be a little tricky to do it here, but say I have level-wise promotions. I'll probably include 2 columns, right? And then resultant headcount. So here, if I know that there are going to be like 20 promotions, 8 promotions, 2 promotions, 1 promotion, right? So basis this, I can then say that this is what my headcount would be. So I'll have 205 minus 20. Here I will have 155 plus 20 minus 8. I'll have 98 plus 8 minus 1. And here I'll have, okay, I don't think so I can promote anyone out of this thing, but I can say that out of 42, I'll have 1 person who will get promoted, so 43. So now instead of calculating the gap against the 205, I can do a calculation against this row. So I need to reach to 85, and this 37 will also get calculated against this 185. I'll calculate that, so out of this 37, out of this 185, how many people are going to leave me? And against that, then I'll do a comparison with the 220.
So why will we calculate attrition against 185? Because that would be after a certain number of people have been promoted, right? So I think we should calculate the attrition against so at the end of the year, 205 out of that, 37 people will leave and 20 people will come in. Isn't that how it should be?
No, 20 people will not come in. These are the people who are getting promoted from this level to another level, to the next level. Right?
Okay. Yes, I got where I was going wrong. Thank you so much.
Sir, I have another doubt. Could we have used forecast function to predict the FY 2019 headcount? Or if not, what is the difference?
Okay, so forecast basically is for what you call a time series. Okay, so say, let me just. So here, say you have a time series where you have a value that is coming up, right? So in 1st September, 1st October, 1st November, or probably that gap can be in months and years and whatever, right? And you have a target date. That is, you have the values that these are the values that are going to be there for these periods, right? That was there, and you want to know that if a trend exists in this, then how will that move? Okay. So if the same trend that existed from 1st of September 2018 till 1st of May 2019, then how will the movement be in the future periods? So that is a trend that you're trying to utilize, right, in case you're going with forecast. Right, so it uses a technique called exponential smoothing, and you're able to choose a target date. You're able to choose the values that you have from your previous timeline. You have an option to choose, the timeline, basically the values which correspond to which date. You can choose a seasonality or data completion and other options, right? So I'll just go with an average out here, just so that it calculates correctly. Okay, so here, as you see, there is nothing that that this variable depends upon, apart from time. The only thing that is impacting this variable, whatever we are calculating, is the timeline, nothing else. Okay. So
Okay,
in
sir.
case you wanted to do it for revenue, like for example, you see that there is a certain growth rate in the revenue from 2015 to 18. So here you can use a forecast function because you don't have any other variable against basis which you'll say that how the revenue will change, right? So here you can use a forecast which say function to say that basis how my 15 to 18 revenue has increased. I want to focus that given the same trend is going to continue, how my revenue will increase in the future period. Okay. Out here, we've used a trend function because we have tried to establish a relationship between the revenue and the headcount. So if someone is going to tell me that, my revenue is going to increase by this much, then I'm also going to say that, okay, if you're going to generate that much of revenue, you will need more resources to be able to do that. And that is the linkage that we are trying to use when we are using the trend function here. Okay. So forecast is strictly with the timeline, using the timelines.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Cool. So any other questions, thoughts? Thanks. It's really good questions. It kind of helps me, discuss more aspects, final aspects, because I am at least get a confidence that you guys are understanding what I'm kind of discussing with you. Okay. Any further questions on this particular sheet? No. Okay. So I'll kind of go ahead now. So basically what we've kind of achieved on this particular sheet is that what is the total number of projected hires that we have. Okay. This is the most important variable that we have been able to identify from this particular sheet. Now we'll come to knowing that what we want to identify is that how many that what is the cost that is associated with hiring these 52, this 30, this 13, 4, these many number of people, right? So we have say 99 people here, we have 86 people here, and we have 101 people here. So these are the number of people that we are going to hire, right, in 2019. So in FY19, when I'm going to hire these many people, how much cost will I incur? So for this, I will head back to FY18, okay, and I'll try to see what the cost really looks like. Not to be able to, make any understand the FY18 cost, I need some base information about FY18 hiring. So that is what I've included here in the last sheet, which is called hiring base data. Okay. Well, there are quite a few different, fields out here, which basically talks about the hiring that has happened. I'll give you a very brief snapshot of what is captured here, right? So the way the way recruitment happens in organizations is that there is a team of recruiters which is doing the hiring, right? Now for doing that hiring, now when will the recruiter actually start working on hiring a person? So that happens when there is a request that comes to them. That request is basically generally called a requisition, a manpower requisition. Manpower request form, there could be multiple names given, but basically it is a request that comes in that, this is the specifications I have, this is the JD that I have, please hire someone for me. So typically, when we are working on such kind of a data, every request would have a request number, a unique request number, so to say, right? So against that request number, there would be a particular date on which it comes in. There There is a agreed timeline that, SLA, service level agreement, that within this time I'll try to get the person onboarded. Yeah, this is the field that we'll use. So basically, this request that came in was at level, what job level, and for which business unit. Okay. Then you have some information about, who the recruiter is, how many candidates they had. But finally, who is the candidate that got selected? So every candidate that is there on a system generally gets a candidate ID, so that we are able to uniquely identify that person, right? So I'm not really gone and given any names here. It would just have been some hooking up some more names out here. I've just gone with the ID. A European society where people don't pay their Aadhaar card numbers same. So just an ID that people have. So this is the person who got selected. Now, another important information that we'll be using right now is the source from where the person is coming into the organization, right? So the source is important because of the fact that it impacts the cost that is associated with hiring that person. Okay. So I'll quickly, show you what values are there. There is agency, there is career event, there is job board, and there is referral. This is a very, simplified version of what sources basically we use, right, in terms of hiring. And I've in the next column we've captured what is the cost associated with with these hires. So, and I'll go to the next 2-3 columns just to give you an idea what is captured here, though it is not something that we'll be using. So it is basically for this person that we hired against this position. This is the date on which we offered. This is the date on which the person joined, and this is the time to join, time to offer, and the whether the time to join was within the SLA for that was committed at the beginning. So yeah, just additional information that is there, just in case you want to kind of get an idea, how in what kind of fields basically are relevant in case we want to carry out some other kind of analysis on this data set. But coming back to the important thing that we have, so for each job level and business that requisition that is coming, we are basically saying that what is the source for that candidate. Okay, now why is this source important? So have you guys had any sessions on sourcing in the recruitment section in the staffing and talent acquisition subject that you guys are reading?
We are doing a course on staffing right now, sir.
Yeah. So anything that you kind of read about sourcing people, how sourcing happens?
So primarily, yes, we are learning about the different where all we can source from, etc. What is the benefits, pros and cons?
Yeah. So when I say agency, when I say referral, job boards, career events, does that resonate? What kind of sources have you guys read about? Have you do you understand when I say what an agency is?
Sir, is it like
Yes,
a
sir, third
contract?
party.
Third party, yes, sir. Or a
Yeah.
contractor.
Yeah. So a third party that does what?
So there are third-party companies that do recruitment for majorly their clients. They have certain clients. For example, I'm a third-party recruitment company. I'll have n number of clients, which are the actual companies for which I will be recruiting.
Right.
So they will give me the list of yeah, Khushbu.
Recruitment consultancies, placement agencies, all will be third parties.
Yes.
So, sir, on the very basic level, I think agency, career event, and job boards would help me to source candidates externally, whereas referral will, like, it's an internal way in which the own employees are helping me to source candidate from the external environment.
Yes. Quite rightly said. Thank you, everyone. So basically, as you would understand, then when I'm going to an agency, it is an external party, external organization which is basically doing the recruiting work for me, which is going to typically, these guys would, take the request, understand what kind of profiles you're looking for. They'll, reach out to all your candidates. They will talk to them. They will, understand whether they are interested in this particular role or if they are going to fit in this particular role. They'll share the profile. They'll schedule the interviews. They'll do most of the work. They'll negotiate with the candidate on the compensation that will be offered. Everything these guys will basically do, right? And for doing all this, basically these guys would be charging the company certain amount, right? Now, it could be a fixed amount wherein, they'll say that for hiring a person at job level 1, I'm going to charge you this much, right? Or it could be a, they also do it in bulk, like for example, organizations which have, very high number of hires, right? So they'll say that, okay, for this job level, if I have hired someone for level 1, right? So if I'm going to hire till 100 people, I'll charge you say 5,000 per person. If I'm going to hire say 10,000 people, I'll charge you for 4,500 per person, something like that, right? So they have different kind of slabs. Similarly, they can also, another common model that these agencies kind of follow is on the CTC. So if I get your candidate who is at 10 lakhs per annum, so I'll take, say 6% or 5% or 8% or 10% of that CTC as my fees. Okay, so the idea being that the value, the compensation that you're giving to a person is the kind of value that the person is bringing in, and I'm basically taking some credit for bringing that value to your organization, right? So some portion of that CTC is what I'm taking as a fees. Okay, so this is the kind of models that an agency, an external recruiting firm can kind of have, right? So typically it is a more expensive source of getting hires, right? So yeah, so that is why it is you will see that in this data set, I have listed against the agency's certain recruitment costs, right? And compared to that, compared to one thing that I have not done here, but will happen in a probably a real data set, is that you will have some. So when we do a contract with an agency, we also have one clause which typically happens is that if a person that the agency is making join in our organization is going to leave us within 3 months or 6 months or something like that, then we don't pay the agency for that person, right? So that is sometimes part of the contract. So in the real data sets, you will sometimes see that even though the agency is there as a source, but you might have a zero value there, right? So for this data set, I have basically included a recruitment cost, like again the random values against the hires, right? So that I get some kind of a cost. Now the second thing that I have out here, which is also going to have cost, is the referrals. So while yes, we kind of promote our employees. So basically there are referral schemes which are in place within the organizations, wherein we ask our employees that if there is an opening in the organization, right? We publish those to our employees and say that in case you have any references, someone who will be a good fit for this role, please refer them to this job opening, right? So at the time of applying, the candidate kind of specifies that this I was referred by this person and so on and so. And in fact now there are applicant tracking systems which also keep a track that like for example an employee can send an invite to someone they know to apply for the position, and when they use that link, automatically the system understands that this person was referred by this employee, right? And basis that for this effort that the employee takes, to find a person to help us hire them, the companies typically have us some kind of a slab that if you get a person at this designation or for this role or for this location, blah blah blah, different criteria, then this is the kind of amount that we will pay you, right? So basis that, that is the kind of thing that I kind of try to capture here, that for a referral, there is some kind of a cost that is associated, which is the cost that we give to the employee as a bonus for giving us a referral, for sourcing a person for us by giving us a referral, right? So these are the two things that will have costs associated. The two other things for which I am not associated cost out here, but will also have some cost associated with them, is like career events, right? So when I talk about career events, it basically means events like like I'm going to a campus, okay? So when I'm going to a campus, then I'm going to incur some kind of a cost in terms of travel, in terms of managing logistics, and those kind of things, right? So there is a cost that is associated with a career event. Similarly, there could be job fairs. So there are different kind of job fairs which happen where companies go and put up their stalls and talk about the openings that they have, and there are a lot of candidates who come in, and in case there is a relevant opening for which they are screened, in case their resumes look in line, probably they will have one round of interview there itself, and we are able to select candidates who are relevant to our opening. So typically for March openings that we have, we kind of try and do a career event, so that kind of gives us an input, right? So this is what we do in terms of career events, and these would also have typically some costs associated with it, but then it is not per employee basis, right? So so when I go to a career event, probably I'm spending 10,000 rupees there, right? But then I might hire 4 people, I might hire 5 people. There will be a career event on which I spend say 20,000, but I hire only 2. Whereas there will be another career event where I spend say only 5,000, but I hire 10 people, right? So that is why I'm not really included a recruitment cost out here. But when we look at the FY18 cost, you'll see that the values are basically here, right? For these for the career event as a option. The other thing that I've also included here is job boards, right? So job boards are basically job boards like Naukri.com, Monster.com, LinkedIn, Indeed.com. These kind of places where you basically post jobs. These are technology platforms on which the employer is also registering, and the the candidate is also registering, and it kind of tries to match the two and give a pipeline to the organization that these are the people who have applied to your jobs, or probably the recruiters can go and also search the candidates and find people relevant and then speak to them and everything, right? So but then yeah, it is a little more time intensive, so compared to the other sources like agency where you have someone else, for a single position probably they will have 2 or 3 people trying to source and find the candidates and talk to them, shortlist them and everything. Out here, generally the number of resources that you have in recruitment within the organization is limited. So sometimes you will say that it is more effort intensive and more time intensive, right? Job boards. So again, job boards would generally work on a subscription based model. So basically, you would have recruiters who would get subscription accounts to a particular job board for a duration. Like for example, Naukri.com will say that I will give you one login account for a duration of 6 months at this cost, right? So that is how, and I'll charge you say 5,000, 10,000 rupees. So it kind of runs into lakhs. I'm just giving you numbers, some random numbers, right? Just to explain. So this is what I have kind of used, and this is what we'll use for capturing the or creating the summaries, right? Any other sources that you can think of? apart from what I've kind of mentioned here. I mean, there would be. I'll just discuss in case whether there is a cost associated with them or not. In that case.
So internal
Company
recruitment.
website.
So internal recruitment is basically through an IJP, which is basically called an internal job posting. So what happens there is that you basically publish the position to all the employees in your organization, and you're not asking for referrals from them, but you're basically asking them to apply. So in case they're interested, they can apply to those positions and get selected and get hired, right? So there is no direct cost that is associated, because the platform on which you're sending out the information is generally emails, or probably a intranet site on which you kind of publish the positions, and your ATS kind of manages all of that that application process. So there is no additional cost generally that is associated with the internal recruitment, apart from the fact that yes, you'll end up opening up the position for the person who is getting hired, but then that is part of the manpower planning, so to say. It will not really be a recruitment cost per se. Good. So yeah, internal recruiting is one of the things that we do. Any other things that comes to your mind, in
Your
terms of
company website. So
Sorry?
company website.
So company website, yes. So again, company website is something which basically is part of the applicant tracking system setup. So again, this is something which would not have a cost associated with it, right? Walk-in drives certainly have a cost associated, because oftentimes, what we do is that we would also try to give them certain refreshments. We will probably make some setup for them. All those kind of things kind of take some money. Sometimes we also have to do walk-in drives at an outside location, so the offices might not be big enough to kind of accommodate the number of people coming in. So we might rent a place for a day and do the walk-in drives there. So yeah, there is a cost that will be associated with that. So yeah.
Sir, I have a question. Sir, when we do walk-ins and when we have a lot of resumes coming over company website, there will be a man-hour cost involved for our employee, which will be doing the work of selecting the resumes and taking the interviews, as compared to an agency wherein we just have to give them money and they will hire people for us. So do we not include that as a recruitment cost, because that will be incurred to the company itself, or is it something else?
We do have that kind of a cost, but then that is something that we would typically include while doing a manpower planning for the recruitment team. Okay, so typically, when we're doing walk-ins, we might, have certain temporary stuff is what you're basically saying, that just to manage the logistics and all of that, you might have you might have to incur that kind of a cost. There is also a hybrid model, so to say, in terms of walk-ins, wherein what people do is that you have the agencies who would send across a resource of their own, just to manage their candidates that they are sourcing. So even for walk-ins, sometimes agencies do the sourcing and call up the people, for those drives. So when we think about walk-in drives, it is typically um, about freshers, or probably people with less experience. But actually, walk-ins also happen for sometimes people with 4 to 5 years of experience as well. So in those kind of drives, we would sometimes also have the agency kind of send in a few people, right? So just to promote their agency and just to support the overall practice, sometimes they also send in a resource. Otherwise, yes, there would be a cost associated with walk-in drives, if it is being done outside the organization, or probably we are getting some temporary person to come in and do it. So typically, the two scenarios that we looked at, one is on the job boards, on the career website. So typically we'll park those sources into job boards. What we kind of do is that instead of job boards, we sometimes name this as direct channel. So direct because it is a direct communication that the recruiter or recruitment team did with the employee in with the candidate, right, and reached out without incurring any additional costs. So sometimes we use a direct channel as a channel wherein will include things like word of mouth, things like for example, I reached out to a candidate and that I asked that candidate, you know someone else who can kind of fit into this role, and that person kind of contacts the recruiter back. So in that kind of a scenario, there is again not an additional cost. It's like a word of mouth that kind of what you similarly, there could be free freebies that you could, free platforms like LinkedIn, like Facebook, Twitter, and all, on which you post positions and people will come to your job board and apply. So in such kind of scenarios, we'll kind of generally talk about them in terms of job boards or direct channel. And in case of walk-ins, we'll kind of try to push them into career events. If there are no costs associated with the walk-ins, then in that kind of a scenario, typically that will also come into direct. Okay, so there are two aspects. One is where the walk-ins can be cost intensive, when, and another one where there are no costs associated with the particular event, the walk-in events. So there can be two kind of things, right? So yeah, I think good coverage there in terms of the ones that you also mentioned, you guys have mentioned. Any other ones that comes to your mind?
So there are some websites where people, like especially for jobs like graphic designers and all, so where their work is very important. So what it does is, rather than recruiters putting up job posts over there, it allows the person who wishes to get hired to put up the whole work profile, including the designs and all which they have worked on, so they can show their whole portfolio over there. And if I'm a recruiter, I can just go and select amongst different people whom I would wish to hire for my company. So can they also be called a sourcing, you know uh,
Yes, they are part of the sourcing. Okay, now again, this kind of platforms that you're talking about can be either subscription based or can be free. Like for example, for example, for coders, there are site who basically uh, work on designing. Programming, basically designing a product based on programming. You could have places like GitHub, right? You could have places like Stack Overflow. You could have places like Kaggle, where they show their contributions, right? They show their portfolios. So in case of productive cases, in case of production, um, yeah, like creative production, as you mentioned, there are sites like Behance, okay, which where a recruiter can register and can sort through different portfolios and see that how good that particular person is, and basis that decide and pick up the contact that person. Now, when we talk about these kind of sites. As for example, in case of GitHub or Kaggle or Stack Overflow, these are free to register, right? So again, you're kind of trying to directly reach out to the person, and there is no cost associated with it. But say something like a Behance, which gives you to publish your creative portfolio, they might associated cost. You can get a recruiter login, wherein again at some particular cost, wherein you're going to go and use, because you have that subscription, you'll be able to contact people. Okay, so for such a scenario, it is like a job board where in a Naukri.com also people are basically putting up their resumes and you're able to search them and contact them. Similar kind of a thing is there in these kind of websites as well. Some of them, most of them are basically for publishing your work. But then if as a recruiter you want to be able to contact anyone on that particular platform, in such a scenario, sometimes these websites give a specific recruiter login, right, or talent sourcing login or whatever name they want to give it, and they'll charge certain subscription charge for it.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, so such a scenario again will be subscription based. So using that one subscription, you can hire 5 people, you can hire 10 people, you can hire 1 people, you can hire 0 people, whatever, right? So it is also something which will typically be treated as job boards, wherein you have a one-time subscription that you're paying, and basis that whatever number of hires you're able to get from that, that is what you'll be able to capture in your base data. Okay, so I think we've had a recent discussion on this, and I kind of think that you guys kind of make a sense of what the data is. Now I'll come to this particular sheet and I'll discuss about a couple of things, right? Before we kind of just to give you an idea about the job boards and subscriptions and career events that we talked about. So on this sheet, you'll basically see 2 yellow columns, right? So these are the ones which are not getting calculated from this sheet, this base sheet. Here, what I've basically given is that the overall cost that I incurred for these for career events in FY18 is 1,05,000. Okay, so here what I'm saying is that say I had 7 career events that I was part of, that I took part in, right? So even okay, and I incurred some kind of cost for each of those. It could be, this could be a job fair, this could be a walk-in where I did externally and I incurred some kind of a cost. This could be a campus that I visited. This could be, another, job fair, campus, walk-in, whatever, right? So for each of these, basically, I incurred some kind of a cost, right? 5,000, 10,000, blah, 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 right? So all this basically adds up to say about 1,05,000. Now, why I treat this differently and not like I did for these cases is because what I had mentioned, I think earlier also, that the number of hires that I have from a particular job fair might vary. I go in here and I spend 5,000, I might be able to get only 0%. I go in here, I might be able to get 20 people. Different kind of events can have different kind of cost. So while I plan for the year, probably I can say that what is more cost effective for me in terms of getting the kind of people that I want. So walk-ins would typically have people with probably lower skills or lower levels of the organization, right? Job fairs could be again, for some specific niche industry or niche skills. We could also have something interesting that we also do is, one of the organizations that I was working with was doing something called diversity drives. Okay, so they used to basically get people in, they used to basically say that, we have certain set of positions and we only want to hire female employees for that. Okay. So, and typically it is not even, junior positions. They were like, because they were seeing that they had lower level of diversity as they increase in the organization hierarchy. So they would typically have these dives for higher designation people, and they would basically focus more around trying to sell the organization, trying to talk about the different practices they have, how employee centric they are, what kind of challenging work that they will get, what kind of development opportunities they'll get. So kind of trying to attract them that way. So those also sometimes entail cost, because there's a lot of logistics that get managed in such kind of scenarios, right? So that is also one of the ways in which we hire, and that could also be something like a job event or career event that we've done, for which we've spent some money and we've got people. So yeah, whether doing a job fair or not, whether doing a campus drive or not for certain positions is something that can be derived out of this data. Just to see the effectiveness of the events that we are part of, that we are conducting or are part of. But in terms of cost, we can basically, typically how organizations approach it is that they would sum up the overall cost that we are incurring on all the people that we've hired through career events, and we'll see that what is the number of people that we've hired through it. Right. So from career event we have say 49 people. From job boards we have say 50 people. Now for job boards we would look at again subscription value. So we could have again multiple job boards, like we could have LinkedIn, we could have Naukri, Indeed, as you mentioned, say, for creative people, say we could have Behance, we could have, any other kind of platform which kind of charges us something. So subscription charges for all of that. Typically, it would be basis the number of CVs that we view. CV views is what they give us, and logins is what they give us. So how many logins you have, how many CV views you have, or probably the number of people that you can contact, right? So these are the kind of variables basis which these subscriptions are based upon, right? So basis the total value that you get out of these, and also your knowledge of what sources basically we got from, we can basically plug them into this and we'll get a complete total value of all the subscriptions and all the costs associated with it. The difference that comes between the costs that we calculate for career events and the cost that we calculate for job boards is that at the start of the year we'll have some idea about what number of people, what is the cost that is going to be for the different job boards, because these are like prepaid services. You first pay them, and the number of logins that they, and you can use the number of logins that they give you, or you can utilize the balance that you get in terms of CV views or the number of people that you are contacting. Okay, so typically, this is a value that will come before the year starts. So you'll kind of have a budget you're looking at, whereas this is still going to be based on certain averages. That what is the average cost that you are going to incur on these. Of course, if there is some more granular detail that last year I did these many walk-ins and these many campus and these many drives and all that. So basis that you can plan that I'm going to reduce the number of drives, or I'm going to increase the number of walk-ins, or I'm going to increase the number of campus visits, and basis that you can decide that what kind of a cost you want to look at this year. Okay, so I kind of I hope you guys have some kind of an understanding about how we are going to look at the cost, right? I think we'll just take a quick 10 minutes break, 10 to 12 minutes, 15 minutes break, and be back by about 11:45, right? So that we can then work upon calculating these costs for the last year, right? And looking at the trends that we'll need, so that we are able to calculate the cost for the coming year, for the projections for this particular year, FY19. Right? Sounds good. Any queries that you have till around what we discussed till now, before we take a break?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, so actually there are no values in the sheet that has been shared with us. So are we going to do that post break?
Yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we'll post the break. I'll show you that how you will create pivots. I think you guys have some idea about creating pivots, right? So I'll basically show you how you will be filling all these blue and green columns. So the blue ones are going to come from pivots. The green ones are going to come from formulas. So that is why I have not given the values in your sheet so that you guys kind of practice it along when I show you how you're going to do it.
Okay, sure, sir.
Okay. So the target is that the sheet that I've given you has certain green and certain blue columns, certain blue cells, right? So these are all the cells that you will try to fill in. Okay, so I think if there are no questions, then we'll take a break, right? Let's reconvene at 11:45. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, queries, anything that you want to also discuss about, you can use a chat, right? Chat window in the Meet, and we can discuss about that, towards the end of the session. All right, I'll mute and close the video for now.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. We'll meet at 11:45.
Hello, is everyone back in?
Yes, sir. I guess we can start.
Okay, cool. So, okay, cool. I'll just quickly check if there are any queries that have come in between. No? Okay. Okay, so I think, you guys are kind of, are able to follow what I'm basically showing here, right, till now. So basically the prediction of hires and the understanding of the costs associated with different sources, right? I'll kind of give you an idea about why the sources are important, right? Not just for the costing, but from a projection and trending perspective in some time, right? I will be speaking about that. But yeah, you guys, in case you have anything specific that you want to that you want covered as well, just let me know. Yeah, so that I can kind of in case there is something that see in terms of Excel, if you have something which you're kind of struggling with, I would suggest that I'll be doing is that I'll be sending you another file, post the event, post the session where, like for example, I'll be asking you to fill in the inputs from an pivot right now. Okay, but in that file you'll see the pivot itself, so that you get an idea of what fields I have included where and what measures I have taken and everything. Okay, but in terms of the concept, which is more important, right? In terms of why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you have any queries around that, then please do voice out so that I can discuss. It not only helps you but also others, because conceptually we could be discussing about things, variations. Typically, I have kind of covered simple ways in which the calculation happens, but in realistic scenario, there would be other variations as well which could get included, for which probably we need to tweak the formulas a bit, or probably make it a little more extensive in the way the calculations are done and everything. So in case you have any thing that comes to your mind, which you think can be discussed in the context, please feel free to kind of either put it in the chat, or just unmute yourself and talk about it. So okay, so now let's we don't have these values, so I'll just remove them from here as well. Something that it gives us, I had kind of kept it in mind, but okay. So now that we have this base data, okay. So this base through this base data, we would try to create some kind of context, some kind of trends. Okay, what are the kind of trends that you would need? So first thing that I think we can look, which is very simple and straightforward, which we need to fill in, is the number of hires, right? Out of the total hires that happened last year, against each of the sources, how many came in, through those channels. So that is the first thing that we'll do. So what we'll do is that we'll just create one pivot for the time being, right? So to create the pivot, just come to the hiring base data sheet, go to insert, click on pivot, and you'll see hiring data selected, or probably you'll see the data ranges given there, and you just see that it is a new worksheet which is selected here, and then you just click on OK. You have a new pivot table which gets created. Okay. So far so good, I hope. So now basically what I want to know is the number of hires that we've had. So we can just say take the requisition number as the measure, right? And we can just use the count of those. 187 hires, and you want to break it out by the different sources. So we'll just pull this thing down, right? So we have, the ages, the different sources from where we are hiring, and the count of people that we have hired from them. All right. So this is the number of hires. So what you can do is you can just simply copy paste these values right now. So you can just copy and paste this information: agency, career events, job boards, referrals. So 42, 49, 50, 46. You can just copy and paste it here. I think this is also not sum. You can either do it as sum or you can paste 187 as well. So you get the count of hires that we have done from each of these sources, right? Now the next thing that we will do is the next blue cells that you see that you need to fill in are the two tables at the top, right? Out here, basically the agencies and the referrals. Okay. Now, what you see on the top of this particular table is average cost per hire. Basically, cost per hire means average is that I've included average here as well. Okay, while writing it. But okay, so basically, what you need is the different levels, different businesses. So the number of people that you've hired for each of these boxes, right? Each of these cells. What is the average cost that you spend when hiring these people to agency? Okay, so let's go back to the that we have created, and what we are interested in is only the agency cost, right? So we'll put the agency in the filter. We'll have the agency selected. So we have had 42 people, right? Now, if I were to look at the count look like, so I have 4 people, right, who I have hired using agency. We have 4 different levels for which, the 42 people that I've hired. Now, I also want to look at it from a business unit differentiation, right? So I can just pull these things, right? And I get the count of requisitions. So I've had 42 people from all these different businesses through agency and at these job levels. Now I want to know the average cost, right? So I know the total number of people that I've hired. I also know the total number of costs. How would I calculate the cost? If I were to calculate cost, I could just do one simple thing. I could copy and paste this thing down, and I could, instead of the count of requisitions, the column where I had captured all these cost information is basically recruitment cost. I'll just pull that down. This becomes the total cost because it is a sum, and I just need to, divide this by this. The total cost that I incurred is 13,701, and for 4 people, so the average cost is 3425.25, right? So while this is just to explain you how what I'm calculating. So so basically using this pivot, what I'm calculating is that for business 1 and level 1 in the base data, I'll just go on business 1 and level 1, and I'll choose only agency. Right, so I have 4 people, and this is the total 13701. Right, so this is the total cost that I'm getting here, and this is the total number of people that I've hired. Right, so this is what I'm really calculating when I'm talking about the average cost per person. Okay, and a simple way right now you have to, the way I've showed you is that you just to give you an idea that how this calculation happens. But I'll just show you that this is something that you can do directly in the pivot as well. I am not very sure that how conversant you guys are with the pivots, so that is why but I'll give you an understanding of what I'm doing, so that you're not just following the step, but you understand what I'm doing. right? And I can simply, instead of sum of the cost, I can just do average. And as you will see, the average that I just showed you a little while before, 3425.25 is what gets calculated, right? So this is the calculation that I'm utilizing, that I'm going to use to paste the values in the sheet of FY18 cost, right? So I'm basically going to say that for agency, for business one and at level one, the hires that I've done through agency in FY18, the average cost has come from is basically 3425. Hope you don't have any doubts around this. Okay. Now, similarly, if I have to calculate the cost for referrals, so all that I need to do in this particular sheet is, because I already have the average cost, I just need to go and click on choose referral on the top, right? So by choosing referral, I will get the average cost for each referral that each person that I've had through referrals. This kind of gives me the cost through the referral source, average cost per person that I've had through the referral course. Okay. Any doubt around this? Anything that you're struggling with, or any understanding why I did what I did till now?
Sir, one question.
Yeah.
So, requisition number is different from the number of candidates selected, right? Then why are we taking requisition number?
No, we are not going with the candidates selected. We are going with the candidates filled. So we might have 2 or 3 people that we have selected against a position, right? But then actually we are going to hire only one person against a requisition.
Okay, my understanding.
Okay. Yeah. So just a dummy data that I had kind of created in case we want to basically also in case we have time, we can also discuss about the pipeline for a particular requisition, what that means and all of that. But primarily right now you can just not concentrate on these fields, recruiter, candidate source, candidate selected, and all of that, or these large fields. We are just working with source, recruitment costs, and the job levels and business units in this data set.
Sir, just one thing. Can we use candidate ID instead of the requisition ID?
Yeah. Anything that kind of gives you a count. So and frankly, the reason why I kind of showed you that was to give you a sense on the counts, right? But as you'll see that to fill up this fields, right? You don't actually need the count, because you're directly just applying the average, just looking at the value as an average, summarize as average, and you're getting the values here. Yeah, for the first table, I think, yes, this is where we use the count. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Sir, I just wanted to confirm, once the first table that we created for agency, the only count table, we don't actually need that, right?
No, we don't need that. I just wanted to give you an idea that what is it that I calculated. That is why. So basically, I wanted to give you an idea that for an agency, you have business unit 1, level 1, you have 4 hires, and this is the total cost that you incurred, and therefore what you get is in the pivot is basically the average of this. So if you spend 13,700 rupees for hiring 4 people, the average will become 34. Was it 3425? 3425. So that is the only thing why I used it. But basically, you don't need the counts per se. You'll need the counts probably in the next table again when we go to the next sheet. But right now, it is just the averages that we're working. Does this make sense? What kind of done here? The averages, the way I've calculated and everything. Yeah, okay. So I'll quickly move to the next point now, right? This is basically the, so we had already populated, the costs for career events and for job boards. Okay. Before going for the break, we basically discussed about that why why we keep calculate these separately, and how do we uh, how do we kind of incorporate that cost in the total cost that we'll have for recruitment in that year. Now we'll come to the other two, which I think is not filled in your sheets right now. I'll also move it from here. Yeah. So this basically, okay, I think I have not included any formulas in your sheets, right? So basically, what I'm saying is that on an average, I'm spending 4039 rupees for every hire that I do. Okay. So the total cost would basically be for 42 people into 4039, because that is the average cost. Similarly, for referrals, for hiring 46 people, on an average, I spend 1749. So the total cost that I have is 80,468. Does this make sense? This is what we filled in above.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any questions? Any query? Any doubts you have around this? Because this kind of calculations that we'll be doing in the next sheet. So you guys understand what I did here, right? In terms of average, calculating the average for each business and each designation and overall level, and then using that to calculate the total cost that I have for the year for the hiring that I did from a particular source. Okay. Now the next thing that I'll also do, I think you don't have sum here, so you can kind of do a quick sum to get the total cost that we incurred in the FY 18. Right, a simple sum formula. Now, basically,
Sir, how did you calculate the career event and job boards cost? The ones in yellow?
yeah. So this is not exactly calculated. So it is just an input field, right? As I was discussing earlier about before going on the break, that say I would have different kind of uh, you know platforms on which I'll take subscription, right? And this will be based on certain criteria like number of CVs that I'm viewing, number of logins that I have, number of contacts that I do through the platform, right? So based on that, I get certain contact fee, right? That enables. So this is generally a prepaid cost that I pay for the year, and basis this cost, the summation of this cost, I'll basically put in the number here for the job boards. But
Okay,
also
sir.
and all of that. So yeah, so this is the cost that I've just inputted, just for the sake of calculations. It is not coming from any data, and kind of also discussed around the fact that in the base data we are only including costs at agency and referral, right? We don't include costs for career events and job boards. We kind of try to treat it a little separately in the calculations. It is possible to include them, right, in the calculations as well, but then the values will keep on changing. So say I have 1 lakh as a fixed cost that I've kind of spent on job boards, okay, for subscriptions. So I can give it a formula here, which will say that it will count the number of employees that we've hired through job boards and divide 1 lakh with that number. Okay, so as the number of job board hires increase, my my cost of per employee from job boards will be visible here. Okay, it's just that it was a little complicated formula, so I'm not sure that if everyone will be able to quickly follow in this section. So typically, this is a much more simpler way to kind of manage it. wherein you just put in the values.
Sure, sir, sure. We can continue.
Okay. So now the average. So I think yeah, we filled in these values, right? This column, and this is very simple. This is just a average of what is the cost that we're incurring per channel wise. What is the kind of cost that we incur? Okay. Um, Now, just one more thing that we kind of capture here, right, is the number of events. So, say I kind of said that I spent 1,05,000, and say I had certain number of events listed down, right, and some associated cost with that, which totals up to 1,05,000. So, one thing interesting that we can capture, in terms of this cost is the number of events for which this cost is, and also the number of average hires that we've had through these events. Okay, so like 49 hires that we've done through 7 events, right? So therefore, this basically becomes 49 by 7 to give us that per event how much cost that I'm sending. Sorry, how many hires that I'm able to get, right? And the next thing that I can also do is with this populated, that is the number of events for which this 1,05,000 is the cost, is how much I'm spending on an average at an event. Okay, so this gives me a 15,000 cost. So this is also something which will be interesting to use in the projections that we do in the next sheet. Okay. Any questions or queries that you have till now on what we did to calculate the total cost for FY18 and the average cost per event for FY18?
Sir, why are we taking only career event ka numbers for calculating cost per event?
So I'll tell you, as we go, in the next sheet, we'll actually reach a point where we'll have to say that how many career events we will do next year. Okay. So to decide that, basically we need that how many hires we do per event. So that if we say that these are the number of hires that we want to do from career events next year, then how many events we will need to be part of, or how many events we'll need to conduct. So that is why we kind of calculated this.
So otherwise, if generally I would have to take total, right? If I wanted average hires for the entire year or something like that, like 187 divided by 7, and then cost from that.
But you already have a cost for specifically career events, no?
Yes, sir. No. I mean just average hires per event. The like it's basically average hires from career event per event, right?
Event, yeah. Average hires per event, yeah. Career event. Yeah, 7 divided by 49 would not be the right thing. Sorry, 7 divided by 187 would not be the right way in case you wanted to do calculate for each person. It would rather be 49 divided by 187. So if you just had the total cost and you had to calculate that how much you want to attribute to your career events, then 26% of your hires are coming from career events. The total hires. 7 divided by 187 would not be any relevant this thing.
Sure.
So actually, even I am struggling with that a little bit. So when we're talking about average hires by event, shouldn't we be looking at the total number of hires, that is 187, divided by the total number of events, that is 7?
No. So total number of events that I did was 7, right? And from these events, I was able to hire 49 people.
So in this table, when we say events, we are only taking into consideration the career events, right?
Only the career events, yeah.
So, can you repeat once again, right from this? I mean, we are clear till the average cost per hire till referral.
Till referral. Okay.
Yes, so we are aware of how we got 4039 and 1749. So
Yeah.
after that, we are not little clear.
Okay. So so after that, what I
Like
basically
how we
built
got
in.
the career event number cost.
How did I get? Okay. What I'll do is I'll just put in some events here, right?
So what
And
was it from the hiring based data sheet or?
no, it's not from the hiring based data sheet. So I know that I conducted 7 events in FY19. There was one job fair, there was one this, there was one diversity drive, there was one walk-in, again a campus. And I spent some amount some places, right? 1,000. Okay, now it makes sense what I've done. Number
First,
of events
basically, it's an assumption.
yes. It's not an assumption. It's just that I didn't give a base data for it.
Yes, right.
But basically, you would have for all the events that you do, you would have a particular a tracking of it, right? That how much did I spend on events this year? So from this, I could have say 10 hires. This could give me another 10, and 10. This could give me 2. This could give me 4, 5, 3. I have. I could have varied number of hires that I do from all the different events, right? So I have 49 hires. So this is the data that I have, right, against against the different events, and I have also the cost associated with it. Okay, so this could be a base data that I have basis which I am populating the carrier events. So in important metrics related to the carrier event, what is the total cost that I spent, right? What is the total number of hires that I did? 49. And what is the yeah, I think basis that you can calculate what is the average spending that I'm doing for each hire. I'm able to calculate what is the number of events that I did, what is the number of hires that I did per carrier event, and what is the total number of what is the cost that I was incurring for each event that I did on an average. Okay, so far so good.
Yes, sir.
Any doubts that you guys are having in understanding this? Please feel free to say okay. I can repeat it a couple of times, not a problem.
No, sir, we are okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, so so you guys have kind of issues, right? What I'm showing here. Something a little deviation, that's okay. But as long as you're understanding what I'm doing, right? I'm basically calculating the total cost and I'm calculating the total cost per hire or average cost for each hire that I'm doing by the different channels. Okay. Now let's go to the more interesting sheet, which is the next one. This is the FY19 projections. Okay. Now I think you guys have all the sheets, all these blank for you. So I'll firstly tell you, what you need to fill in. So you need to fill in the projected hires, which is simply this 52 is coming from the very first sheet that we had. How many will we hire? Right. So here you see this value 52. So this is what you need to basically populate here. You can either copy paste it, you can populate it, or you can even link it. So you can just simply equal to and link it here. Right. Just that you'll have to kind of put one by one. But you should be able to get the total number of projected hires at for every business unit has one block for them. This, if we consider this as one block, so every business unit has one block dedicated to them in the sheet, right? So you need to populate the number of people that you're going to hire for business one at level 1 in FY19, for business 1 level 2, for business 1 level 3, for business 1 level 4. And then we just sum it up. Similarly, we'll have business 2 level 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So that is the first thing that you guys can populate on this sheet. And then you just sum the whole thing up. That is the total number of projected hires. All right. Just type it, done in the chat in case you're done. Let me just see 3, 4, 4, 5, done, and then I can kind of move ahead. Okay, cool. So I think it's clear. So this is the first thing that you guys do, right? Now the next thing that you will do, which is for which you will again go to the pivot, is to fill in these blue numbers. Okay. So what I'm basically doing here, if you see the this particular breakout, what breakout it gives is that for business 1 at level 1, the number of hires that I did. Okay, what is the percentage breakout of those hires? Okay, so this should be ideally come to 100, but basically it says that if I hired 10 people here or 100 people for level 1 in business 1, then 21 came from agency, 32 came from referral, 11 came from career events, and 37 came from job boards. Okay. So this is something that I'm basing on the FY19 data. So this pivot that we had created, right? So we'll go back to this pivot, right? Don't worry, I'll be sharing the sheet with you, which has the pivots in the sheet itself. Like out here only, instead of this table, you'll find the pivot so that you know what I've used. So yeah, I think you just need to sequence it in a way in which I have pasted here. So you have agency, referral, career event, and job boards. I'll just take out the average of this thing. I can take candidate ID as the not the sum of it, but the count of it. So I can take the count of candidate ID. So I have 187 hires, and I have them at different levels. So your rows will have job levels. Your source will have the different channel sources, and your filter will have business unit. Okay, and just keep check on the sequence. I just lined it so that it's easier to apply the formulas. So agency, referral, career event, and job boards. So agency, referral, career events, and job boards. Okay, so this is the total number of hires that you've done, 187. divided between the different levels and the agencies. Now, for 55 hires that I've done, right? What I have, how many I have had done through agency. A simple way to do it would be 12 divided by 55, right? I'll just use this so that it. So if I were to apply this formula, that is 12 divided by 55, 12 divided by 55, 19 divided by 55, right? So that gives me a percentage breakout of how many people I have hired from these different sources for a given designation. Okay, makes sense? What I have calculated here.
So, but for different business unit, we'll have to filter out, right? So
Yes.
we can do it in Pivot itself, so that it will be easier to copy paste.
Yes, we'll do the calculations within the pivots itself, right? But I just wanted to get an idea that whether this concept is clear, that what is it that I'm breaking out in the percentages.
So just a very small thing, how do we ensure that the columns are in the order? So for example, the pivot that I'm using, I'm getting agency, career event, and something. So how do I, yeah, change?
You can just click on the header, that is career event, right? And then you see this, when you take your cursor on it, you'll see this crossbar. Okay, you can just click on that when you see the crossbar, and you can move around. So I can I clicked on the career event and I moved it to here. Similarly, I go to referral, I select the referral header, and then when I take my cursor on it, you see this crossbar. So when the crossbar appears, I can just click on it, and then I can move move towards the left and place the referral column there. Works?
Yes, I got it. Thanks.
Okay. Now, so you understand what I'm trying to calculate here, right? That is basically out of this 55, what is the distribution between the different sources? Okay. So now we need to basically put this values, out there in the table on the sheet. So what we can simply do is just right click and show value as, right, and show as a percentage of the row total. Okay, so what it will basically do is it will just do that same calculation that you did, right, and it will show it as in the pivot itself. So you don't need to do the calculation separately below. You'll get the values directly from the pivot table, right? And then you can just filter out for each of the business units. So like business unit 1, you can just copy these 4. You don't need the grand total, but you can just copy these 4 and paste it there. Okay, similarly, you can just filter on business unit 2. Just do that. I'll come to why I'm doing this, right, in just a minute. Just first populate the values. All right. Just let me know, some of you just let me know in the chat that you've done it.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so suppose this exercise we have to repeat like every month or something, maybe not in this case, but if we have to do it like that, wouldn't it be better to create different pivots so that whenever you refresh the data, it automatically gets reflected. Otherwise, like here we are pasting as value, so we will have to do it again and again, right?
Yes. So that is what I mentioned, that I am giving you a Excel sheet which basically has the pivots right here, right? So that you are able to understand. So let me see if I can share this. Can you I kind of switched the tabs. Can you let me know what you're seeing right now?
We can see the tab, how many will we hire?
Okay, great. So this is a sheet that I'll share with you guys, okay, after the event. So here you will see that, I have kind of created the same thing with the pivots. Okay. So these are actually the pivots, and you just need to refresh after refreshing the data. So it is in line, and the formulas are also in this pivot table.
Okay,
This is
sir.
something that I'll share. It's just that the reason why I'm not doing it in the session itself is because you need to be a little careful about pasting the or placing the pivot. So if you remember, while you created the pivot the first time around, it basically asked us that where do you want to place it, right? And since I had linked formulas, formulas linked to the table, you have to be very specific about where you're pasting. If you go, even one cell up or down while using an existing sheet to paste that pivot, all the values will not work. And since this is a virtual environment, it will be difficult for me to kind of understand, where people kind of have gone wrong. So that is why I'm going with the approach where I'm sharing, telling you guys to just copy and paste the values here. But in the file that I'll be sharing, which actually has the final calculations and everything, you'll see that the pivot tables are there in line within the sheets itself.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Okay, let me see. I think I have people who have said done. So I think we can now move to the next section, right? So now what we essentially have done is that last year, this is how we did the hiring. Okay, so if I have to hire 10 people in level 4 in business 1, then 6% of them will come from agencies, 47 will come from job boards, 18 will come from career events, and 29 will come from 29% will come from referrals, right? So this is what we'll use basically to calculate how many people will get. So if we have to hire 52 people here, right? So how many of them are going to come through agency, referral, career event, job boards? Make sense? So say I have 52 hires to make, and I want to know how many of those 52 hires are going to come from agency. Okay, so I can say that out of this 52, basically 21% of them are going to come through agency. I'll do something very simple, which is 52 into 21%. So for each, each breakout projected hires group that we now have the breakout by different different channels from where we are going to hire these people. Okay. Make sense what I have done? Any questions, queries about it? Let me know. Any queries, any questions? What I have done here. Yes, no. Okay, at least type in done in case you're done with the calculations. Just type chat in the chat that you've been able to do it. Okay, I see prices. So let me just go ahead. But more importantly, are you able to
How did
conceptually
you?
understand that what I am kind of trying to do? Hello.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, cool. So I'm just also just for the purpose, I'm just putting in a summation as well at the end bottom. That gives me the sum of people that will be hired through different channels, right? So this gives me a breakout. Okay. Now for this breakout, I need to calculate what is the cost that I'll incur. Okay. So now I know that what do you say, channels which basically are give me an average cost are agency and referrals, right? So what I'll calculate is that for hiring 11 people, what is the average cost that I have to, what is the cost that I have to generally incur, right? So for doing that, I know the fact that this 11 hires that I have are basically for level 1 and business 1, right? So I need to know that for 11 hires, how much cost I'll incur. I know the average cost per agency hire in business 1 and level 1, right? From this table that we had before. Yeah. So for business 1 and level 1, I have 3425 hires. Sorry, 3425 as the average cost. So to get the cost for 11 hires, all that I need to do is basically multiply this level with the value here, that is B5. Okay, from the FY18 cost sheet, the cell B5 is what I want to map. Similarly, for the value in agency, I will basically multiply it by 44. For the level 3 business one, I'll multiply it by 4143. And for agency business 1 level 4, I'll multiply it by 4108. Right, so on and so forth. So for the tables below, it will be basically these 3, 4. For the table below that, it will be these. Try it out and let me know in case you're facing any issue.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, currently the percentages that we are getting under each of the agency, referral, career event and job boards are based on the past data,
yes.
Right? So my question is do we have certain kind of logic going into what is the priority order in which we decide that which channel we should use, or can there be any optimization algorithm also on the past data which can help us decide that what is the priority that or what is the quota against each of them that we are going to select?
So that is something that we will have to decide. So optimization would be basis some end goal in mind, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you want to say that our overall cost should be this, or probably for a given given set of values, this is the I mean for a given business and level, this is the percentage that we think is going to be possible. So that is what will really decide that what is the values that we work with. So basically what would happen is that typically how we do it is we firstly calculate this, right? That given that you're going to go by the trend that you had last year, this is the cost that is going to look like, and then we try to tweak around with this. So basically we'll try and find out areas where you use agency high, right? So we say that okay, business one level 3 we are basically using agency very much, or business one level 1 we are using agency a lot, or probably business 2 level 2 we are using it a lot. And therefore the recruitment lead takes a call basis the complexity that is there in those positions, that whether they can reduce it or not. And basis that we say that okay, probably will, instead of 44%, we will have a target that we will not exceed 20% in agency, and whatever is left basically we'll try to bring in through job boards, right? Or we could say that we will, instead of agencies, we can increase in career events or in referrals. So the breakdown between the different channels is something that that is done more so keeping in mind the complexity of the roles that are there, right? So if they think that it is not possible for us to find people through referrals or find people through job boards, I mean our recruiters are not smart enough, or we cannot dedicate that much amount of time to do it, so then they'll keep it as 44, but otherwise they can try and reduce it.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I have a doubt.
Mhm.
Sir, if when we are calculating the cost for projected hires for agency or
Yeah.
per se referrals, so why are we not multiplying the number of people that we are hiring in agencies by the cost per hire which we calculated in the previous sheet? So why are we not multiplying these two?
So this is also cost per hire, but basically we're just breaking it down by the businesses as well, right? So you can do it like you can say that I'm going to have 4039 as the cost, as the average cost, right, of hire, but then the averages also vary between the different levels and businesses, right? So if I do more hiring in business one and level 2, and less hiring in say business 3 level 4, right? So then that would basically mean that my averages will shoot higher, because the cost of hiring a business 1 level 2 differs from the cost of hiring a business 3 level 4 person from an agency. So therefore, since there is another level of variation that we already have, so that is why we are basically doing this calculation, because this mix that you see, this 4039, is also coming out of a particular mix between the business and levels that we hired last year, right, in FY18. So therefore, to make it more relevant in terms of since we are already breaking it down by the different businesses and levels, we want to be a little more exact. So whatever business and level mix that we have for this year, right, that will become the basis for the total cost, rather than just having the 4039 number, because this 4039 number is for a specific mix of business and level.
Okay, sir. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and this mix is also vary, because one thing that we have kept variable here is the revenue. So how many people will have in business 1, business 2, business 3, right? That is also something that is being controlled by the revenue that we inserted at the very first instance.
So why are we doing this exercise only for agency and referral?
Because, as I said, that the cost for job boards is something which is prepaid. So at the time of budgeting, which is at the start of the year, we already know that what is the kind of cost that we are going to incur for job boards.
But then in the previous tables, then calculating the percentages level by and everything, would that be very relevant then, since we are not using that data at all?
Which one?
So like in FY19 projections sheet,
Yeah.
the tables on the right where we have calculated by the percentages for job boards and
Career event.
yes.
Yeah.
So why are we then taking into consideration those percentages at all? Like why are we
Because
doing this exercise at all by including them?
yeah, okay. Because we'll also need to know that how many people we are going to get through these channels, right? And in case you want to say that whether there is going to be an increase or decrease in the costs associated with these two channels as well. Okay, so I'll come to that. Just give me, I think, another 5 minutes. I think if you guys can also do it the calculation for referrals, right? It's the same calculation. It's just that I'm multiplying the referrals with in FY18 cost, the cost for average cost for referrals. So you can just kind of do that calculation as well, so that we can then come to the question that she just asked.
So I have something more of an Excel doubt rather than a conceptual doubt. Considering for level 4 agency, since it is 0 into something, because we are not like we have rounded it off, but it's still giving us a value. So how can we counter this problem?
No, we have not rounded it off actually, because out here you will see that I have taken G8 into B8, right? So it is multiplying 4 by 6%. So 4 for 6% would also have some value, right? So I'll just show you. This is 2.24. Okay.
Yes. So in an ideal case, we should be rounding it off and then using it, or how?
Yes, we can, but then because we had certain hires last year at agency level, so we are still using it. If we do the rounding off, we'll have to do something a little different. Okay, I'll tell you what. So say I take this formula only. Okay, and I calculate that this is the percentage that we are getting, right? Now, if what I can do is I can just round it, right, and I'll get these values. Similarly, I can do a calculation for all the others. Okay, now in this scenario, the values are matching completely. So this total comes to 4. But there might be certain scenarios where, okay, let me just try and do it with a bigger number. Just to see that if there is a variation that I can. Okay, I think we are not getting any deviations right now, but basically what can happen when we use rounding off is that we can get difference in the values that we're getting without the rounding off and with the rounding off, right? So that will not total up to 49 or to 28 or to 86, that way. So that is why we don't use rounding off here, because this is just a projection again, right? It is not an actual values that we are looking, but we are just trying to estimate that how is the value going to look like given the trend that we observe. Okay, so that is why just to avoid any kind of deviations that can happen because of rounding off, we just use this values. I mean, without the rounding off. We can also do the round off just by adding the round.
Okay.
All right, so I think just ping me done in case you've done with populating all these different fields in this table. I think this one was anyways done. This table, the cost of projected hires. If you're done with it, just ping me in the chat window that you've completed it. I can move to the next one. Okay, I've got response from 3 or 4 people. So I think I can then move ahead. Right.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So the way we are breaking down data for hiring in all the 4 categories as per business levels, my question is, can we break down the attrition data in the same way, and can we gather some insights regarding the effectiveness of each of these channels? Any correlation possible?
So that happens once the hiring is done. Okay. So the effectiveness of the channel in terms of attrition can be done by looking at the base data. Okay, where right now I just have hiring information here. But what we can do is that we can add in information about whether the person has attrited or not. Okay, so let me just try and can I park this for towards the end so that the flow is not lost for everyone.
Yes,
But
sir,
I'll
sure.
just show the effectiveness is on attrition.
Sir, I do have a question here.
Yeah.
If we go back to FY19 projection sheet.
Yes.
So the agency cost is coming as 60093.
Yeah.
So we have summed up all the levels in business unit 1, right?
Yes.
So technically, if I actually multiply 16 into 3923 on FY18 cost sheet, the answer should be the same.
16, you will multiply 16
into 3923, yes. The answer should be the same, but it is not. It's something around 660,000.
No, the answer, why do you think the answer should be same?
So that's that is what we are doing with other levels as well, right? I mean, 11 into 3425 in level 1, for example.
Yeah, but how, see, the averages here, right?
Yes.
And these averages are contributing towards the calculation of 3923, right?
Yes.
Now, this average is not a simple average of these values, right?
Right. Okay, sir. Understood.
There is a weightage. So there will be 4 people, 3 people, 5 people, 2 people, something like that. So there is a mix involved in 1, 2, 3, 4, which is leading to a weighted average of 3923.
Understood, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So similarly, you have a weightage here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so let's just quickly populate the total cost for the agencies. Yeah, it's just a summation of all the 3 cells of totals for the 3 businesses. Similarly, you have the 3 businesses with these totals for referrals. So you have the total cost for referrals and agency hires for this number. Now, similarly, you can just calculate quickly, what is the total number of hires that you have by different uh, breakouts. So you have 286 total hires that you have to do, right? That is simply the summation of 99, 86, and 101. Similarly, you have 66. You have the total number of hires for different sections coming in, like job boards, career events, referrals, agencies, and all of that, right? So that is what you can use for calculating these values. It's just a simple summation. Now we'll come to a couple of pointers around the total cost. So we have the total agency cost, we have the total referral cost. Now, given the percentages that we have in the career events tell us that a total of 76 people will get hired this year to career events. This is the percentages that we have given. Okay. So if on an average, I had 7 hires per event last year, right? So I did 49 hires, so I went to 7 events. So in the same scenario, if I were to hire 76 people, how many events I will have to conduct or I'll have to be part of? Okay, so a very simple roundup of that would be dividing 76 by the number of hires that I generally have from one event. So for 49 hires, if I had 7 events, then for 76 hires, how many events will I go to? So that will be 11. It is simply 76 divided by 7, which we got in the previous sheet. Not the number of events, but the number of hires per event. And that is basically rounded off to 11. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Cool. And also what we calculated last time around was that we had 15,000 per event cost, right? So 7 events we ended up with, and we had a cost of about 15,000. So for the same thing, if we were to calculate, for 11 events, how much cost we might incur, so we'll get a amount of 1,65,000, which is simply this value multiplied by 15,000, which we calculated here. Does it all come together to make sense now? We had calculated these values in the previous sheet.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then finally we have the job portals. So again, job portals is something that you can always play around with because it is a prepaid cost. So you can simply say that these are the ones which I'm going to that I have to pay subscription for, or these are the sites that I plan to take subscription for in this year, and basis that we have a amount that you can come up with. Even there, basically, there are certain nitty-gritties involved in terms of increasing the number of logins from a particular job board. That is going to give you this much amount of cost and all of that. That is also something which will be looked into when deciding that what is the cost. So I just said that if I was basically having 90,000 as a cost that I had for all the subscriptions I did last year, probably I'll increase it to say 1,20,000. But you can make it any value. You can make it 1 lakh. You can make it 1,10,000. So it would basically depend upon the negotiations that we are having with the vendors. right? So it is not necessarily a planning on our end. It is more to do with the rates that the vendors offers us. So for the same number of logins and the same number of CV views, if a vendor was charging me 90,000 last year, this year it is very much possible that that value can come down to 80,000 and that value can go to 1 lakh, right? So that is why this is something which I have kept as a variable at this point in time. Okay. So for each of these hires now, right, each of the areas, I can calculate what is the average, what is the cost per hire or the average cost for hiring people, right? I can just use this values here just to do the calculation, and I will get what kind of cost I am going to incur, right? So now this gives me an idea that yeah, this is the values that I want to hire for. Okay. Now, say I want to, now I get the total cost that is about 65 lakh, 6,58,678. Right? Now I want to look at what is it that I can do to improve this. Yeah. So I can play around with the percentages here. So I'll say that, I'll pick up certain places which have higher agency costs. So I'll say that here my agency cost might be busted because I have more percentage of people coming from agency. So instead of hiring these many people, I'll probably say that I'll hire, say, instead of 44, I'll hire 20% from here. And I'll have that the rest 24% distributed or say coming from job boards. Okay, here 40% will basically become 30%. I'll push that into this, right? But that one thing that you need to be careful about while we do around this play around is that all these numbers should still match with 1, right? Because these are all decimals that we had put in the first place, right? So all these numbers should basically come down to 1 as we play along, because then that ways only we'll be able to ensure that we are accounting for all the hires while distributing them between the different channels. So by doing those changes that I just did, you see that the cost kind of came down a little bit from 658 to 631 at least, right? So typically what we would do is that we would have 2 different places. One would be the input sheet. One would be the basic sheet that, this is how you were doing last year. And we'll run a similar calculation like this again from another table, which is where, the recruitment managers and leads are playing around with the numbers. So you'll continue to have, that 658 showing here, and you'll show that, given the plans and changes that you're making, what the cost really looks like. Okay.
Yes.
Questions? Questions, queries, anything that doesn't seem right?
So I'm so sorry, I got logged off in between. So can you go to that cell wherein total cost you have calculated in the end for referrals and agencies? I just wanted to see the formula.
Here?
No, sir. Total cost of agency and referral.
Oh, this one. It's just an equal to. So this is equal to this, and this
Oh,
is
okay.
equal to this.
Then how did you calculate over there?
Over here, it's basically
Yeah,
a
yeah.
summation for these 3. So for
Oh,
each
okay.
business, you have the total cost, right?
Okay, sir. Okay.
So, I also had a confirmation regarding the similar thing. The total cost first column 631914. Where did we get this number from?
Okay. This is something that came because of the changes that I made in the values. So basically here it was 44%, it was 40% and all of that, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of made a change just to see that what is the impact that I am getting. So since you guys have not made the change, you will be looking at something like 658 or something like that.
Okay, but where is this number still coming from? Are we adding something up here?
Okay, just a minute. So this basically is a summation of all the different costs that we have from agency, referral, carry enrollment, and job board.
Okay, okay, understood.
Any other questions?
Sir, where did you get the carrier event data 11? How did you get it?
Yes. So we basis this calculations, we know what the total number of hires we need to do from carrier events this year, right? 76. This is
Yes.
basically a summation from all the different businesses, right? So now for hiring 76 people, how many carrier events do we need to plan to visit? Okay. So last year I hired 49 people from 7 events, right? So on an average, I was able to hire 7 people from one
Okay,
event.
yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Similarly, for 76 people, I'll need 11 events. Any other queries, questions, doubts? Thoughts? Either I explained it very well or probably I explained it very bad. Okay, cool. What I'll do is then, while I'll be sharing this sheet with you guys, I'll take one query which, which you guys basically pushed across, that was around the effectiveness based on attrition. So I have all these hires here, right? That I've hired, right? This complete list of hires. Now I want to see that how many of them basically left me before within 6 months. Okay, so were there an early exit? Okay, and I'll just do a random thing. And we have two values: whether the person, whether the person who was hired was a was an early exit or not. Right, so I'm just doing a random values, just adding to it. So anyone who is 0 is basically a no, okay? And anyone who is 1 is yes. For the exit, yes and no. So you can easily just create a pivot out of this. Right, and this will give you, you want to see that whether the person was a early exit or not, in terms of effectiveness, in terms of early exit. I'll just take it up in the column and I'll take the different sources. And I'll just populate that. How many employees did I have? Right. And I'll just say that I'll view this in a percentage term. Okay. So here you see that basically career events are the ones which have a less. So yes, basically means that the person was an early exit. Okay. So career event is the most effective source if you want to say that where we don't see early exit or attrition being less. Now, if you want to break it down by business unit, you can do that as well. So within a particular business unit, which is the channel which is giving the best results, right? So that is something that can be calculated here, like this. You just get that okay for business one, probably the best, most effective in terms of early attrition is job boards. So effective being the one with the least value. In case of business two, it is career events. In case of business three, again, it is career events. Career. You want to break it down even further. So you can, look at it at a granular level, wherein for business one, at an agency, job level one, which is the most effective. So here you'll see that for business one and level one, the most effective becomes the referral. And in case of business one and level two, we see that there is no exits, early exits in agency and job boards and all that. Right. So this is how you can easily break it out and try and test and see that which is in terms of effectiveness, basically in terms of lesser attrition, early attrition, which are the ones. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, frankly, I'm not a professor for you guys, so I'll not be kind of taking an assessment or anything. But I hope that you guys have kind of been able to match up and look at these fields, like these calculations at your end. I'll be, as I mentioned, I'll be sharing that other sheet as well, which has the pivots and the formulas and everything, so that you can kind of cross check and refer to it. Right? Any other questions, queries, anything that you want to, in general, want to ask about HR analytics as an area, or HR technology as an area? Anything that you want to use this time to just have a discussion upon or get an answer to?
So I have a question. So the HR analytics at C-suite level, how does it work, sir? So what kind of analytics do they involve in?
At what level, sorry?
The C-suite, sir. As in the above the mid
So
management.
the executives basically want to know about certain informations, right? They want to keep track on certain things, right? So that is what they would use it for. Yeah, I actually had sent out a note to one of the actually answered this question for one of my seniors, who was part of the HR league. So I'll just try and pull out that mail and kind of take you through that. That should give you because if I just try to pick it up off my head, I'll probably miss out on certain pointers. Okay. So basically, I was trying to give him an idea that like C-suite, basically CHRO. What would a CHRO really want to keep a tab on, right? So basically, it would all depend upon the kind of areas of responsibilities that the HR head really has. Typically, they would have the responsibilities around recruitment, right, as one of the areas. So in recruitment, they would want to see that what is the uh, time that they take to kind of hire people, what is the kind of cost that they incur, for hiring these people. So cost was one of the things that we covered today, right? Um, Sometimes they also focus on aspects like you know the the quality of hire in terms of which is basically assessed basis the kind of performance rating that the person gets, the first performance rating, or if there is any extension in the probation, if there is any early attrition, any ramp up time to productivity. So those are the kind of things that can probably go into calculating whether the quality of the person that we are hiring is good or not, right? So that kind of again, you can get much deeper into the analysis, in space of recruitment. But at an overall level, if we are not talking about a recruitment lead but a CHRO, so they would just want to know that the commitments that the recruitment is making in terms of cost and the timelines and the quality of people that they're bringing in, whether that is being met or not. Right, so they want to kind of track that. Then when you come to learning and development, then it is about the percentage of people that you've covered, right, in terms of your trainings. So what kind of coverage you have of the total population that you have. In case of certain hot skills, that especially technical or domain specific skills that might be important to a business, they might want to keep a tab on how many people we are training, and or what percentage of our population we are training on those are trained on those hot skills, right? So that is one of the things that they will look at. Again, a training and development team also has a budget with them. So just like we looked at a budget for a recruitment, they also have a budget where they say that this is the kind of cost that we will incur for carrying out all the trainings that we want to do, right? So keeping at the CHRO or C level folks would also want to kind of keep a tab on something like that. Then in terms of talent management, they would want to keep a tab on the high potentials, right? The high potential employees, or the high performing employees. What kind of talent dimensions we have done for them, what kind of projects we've kind of made them part of, or what kind of special interventions in terms of rewards, in terms of mentoring opportunities, or in terms of cross-functional projects that they've been part of. So kind of, if there is something that we are doing with that we as a HR are committing that will take care of the high potential or high performing employees in a certain way, then against those programs, what is the effort or the results that are coming out, right? And similarly, in terms of talent management, one more very critical thing for a CHR becomes the succession planning, right? For the key roles that is identified by the business, whether they have successors identified, or to what percentage, or what percentage of positions basically have a successors against them. Another one that if the organization is trying to push, that is the internal recruitment. So whether we are basically closing out positions from internally or externally, what percentage of people are getting moved within the organization to new roles, right? That is another very interesting aspect that the HR head has to keep a tab of, or the even the executive or business heads kind of have to keep a track of, right? Then there is one aspect is around the audit, right? So basically, any kind of issues that come out in the market, right? That kind of hinders the brand image, of the company. Any kind of misses that we've done in our in managing our payrolls and in managing our business benefits, or all the processes that we are doing. Anything that kind of comes out in the market saying that this company is doing this practice or probably is not following the government norms on these policies, that kind of hinders the brand image. So one of the very important thing that the HR head has to keep a tab of is around these audits, around the different processes that they have, and whether there is any risk associated with those processes. Right? So that is something which they always want to keep a tab of, though it's not always on the top of their mind, but it is something that they have an interest in. Then one very important aspect which the HR heads typically get questioned upon is the labor cost, right? Like what is the cost that we had? So at the start of the year, every time there will be a cost estimate that the HR will give to the business, that this is the given the rate at which the employees that we had come in, the rates at which the employees go out, the existing rates in the market, and the kind of increments that we'll give and promotions that we'll do and all that. This is the kind of labor cost that we will incur, right? So any deviations around that is something that C-suite is always very vigilant about. That we plan that our cost is going to be this, but is there a risk of we spending more money than what we had planned for? Then some places there is also things related to revenue and productivity, right? So basically things like some businesses we have revenue and headcount. So just like what we were seeing here, right? If we were to look at these businesses, and I'll just do a very quick calculation. That is, for generating this much amount of revenue, this was the headcount. So per person, basically the revenue that these guys are earning is business one is earning say 332, business two is earning 188, business three is earning similar something else, right? So basically keeping a tab on whether in terms of productivity or in terms of revenue, whether the match of people versus these attributes, these metrics, is actually making any sense or not. If there is any kind of a deviation, then generally the C-suite would want to keep get an understanding that what is causing this, what is changing in their business, right? So that is one very interesting metric that they kind of try to keep a tab of. And then finally, there is another thing which is basically from a delivery standpoint, right? All the different, like for example, response time to the employees. Sometimes they have this delivery center model wherein you kind of set up a central HR services team which has to manage all the queries and questions and all those things that come from the employee, and it is very time bound, right? So there are SLAs like we'll respond on this within 4 hours, within 8 hours, within 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, basis the complexity of the issue or the query that has come in. So that is also something that they want to keep a very close tab on, that to what extent is that happening. That whether we are, just like how operations keep a tab on their operational SLAs, this is kind of becomes an operational SLA for HR as well. So if there is a investment that the HR head has made in this space, then they would want to keep a tab on that. That to what extent is that function kind of performing within SLA and timelines.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Any other queries, questions, anything that you want to ask? I'll just look at the chat window in case someone has posted something there. Nothing here. All right then. I think nice interacting with you. I hope that whatever I said kind of made sense to you guys. You were able to follow and was relevant to your knowledge.
Sir, before we wrap up, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for that wonderful session. It was crisp and relevant, and all of us, I think, have understood everything, down from the concepts to the actual nitty-gritties of how exactly we've been doing the things. Thank you so much for actually agreeing to take time out of your weekend, and even before, to be really honest, because you had to make the data sheets and prepare for the session as well. So all in all, thank you so much from my end.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Pleasure interacting with you guys.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you.